Greetings, fellow tarot travelers. Tripping through the tetrahedral triptych of cards I shall now lay before you. I'm Tarot Torch, and today we have a very interesting topic. Have you heard about the hypersonic arms race between the USSR, the People's Republic of China, and the United States? Putin viewed a successful test launch of Russia's new hypersonic missile system flying at 27 times faster than the speed of sound and could reach the US from Russia in minutes. These missiles can evade any missile defense system known in the world today. They can and will carry nuclear warheads and easily adjust altitude and direction to avoid detection. The avant-garde missile system guarantees security for Russia for decades to come. Putin claims that nothing can shoot it down. The avant-garde system can even evade any tracking system, radar, or other. Putin claims the new avant-garde missile system will be deployed next year to support the Russian Army and Navy. It travels at 30,000 kilometers per hour. The American Space Shuttle traveled at hyperspeed, but not nearly as fast as the Russian avant-garde system. The next level of engineering's evolution is to create an engine that can travel at hyperspeed. Currently, only glider technology exists for this missile technology. The structure of the avant-garde system is fascinating. The hyperspeed missiles are attached to a conventional or intercontinental nuclear ballistic missile from where they launch at high altitudes above the atmosphere. This is a highly maneuverable gliding warhead that commences its trajectory from high altitudes and separates from the mother missile. It then quickly descends to establish re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. America did withdraw from the ABMT, or the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, in 2002, having originally passed it into law in 1972. President Trump states that Russia has been violating the START Treaty since its beginning, and this new missile system not only violates it, but also proves a chronic violation of the START Treaty. And so, Trump wants to pull out of the START Treaty, since, according to Trump, only America has ever truly honored this treaty. The INF Treaty also is about to collapse, along with the START Treaty. The INF Treaty commenced during the Cold War and requires the monitored destruction of both the US and then the USSR's ground-launched ballistic and cruise missiles, specifically with only ranges between 500 and 5,500 kilometers. Although it may seem that this, the pulling out of all arms treaties, will end all verification processes still enacted to this day and throw nuclear arms into another internationally competitive, newly initiated dark age, the truth is that the hypersonic glider missiles do not fit into any existent arms treaty. They are launched from ballistic missiles, but are not themselves ballistic missiles. The US and China have no formal treaty to limit any nuclear arms, and Russia and America may go the same way under President Trump. China and the US are racing to develop their own hypersonic missile systems. China has tested 10 hypersonic aircraft missile glide vehicles that only reach Mach 10, and yet most experts think China will be the first to deploy. India also has numerous IT specialists working in the U.S. defense sector, and India has many arms trade agreements with Russia, so they too may one day develop this technology, thus making it a truly multilateral arms race. America is now considering a $1 billion research and development budget for hypersonic missile tech development. Will the US, Russia, or China conduct the first strike with nuclear arms to end any adversarial country from delivering hypersonics first, thus rendering them the supreme military force of our planet? Will this technology proliferate to countries like North Korea or Iran? Will this one day be just another outdated boondoggle that will cost taxpayers trillions of dollars, which instead could go to education and Medicare? Will this be my last tarot reading, should hypersonic missiles strike today? Well, there you go. Some very big questions. And because there's no answer to any of these questions available right now, we'll ask the cards, and the cards can lend us some insight. Now, I have 3 countries I'm interested in: China, Russia, and America. And as you know, if you watch my show entitled Russia, these are the cards I use, born in the USSR by Alexander Danilov, to represent Russian concerns. And these cards are only the higher arcana cards. There's no lower arcana involved in them. Oops. And these cards are pictures of old Soviet Union propaganda posters that they used to put up in the public plazas in Moscow and other places. It's a very interesting deck. So this deck will represent Russia. Then for China, my only other communist deck, I call them commie cards. By the way, I am not a communist. I think that, they may have some good ideologies, but the implementation seems to be not too functional. And this one is a deck entitled, I want to get the right name of it, the Chinese Propaganda Art Tarot. And this particular tarot comes from England, and it's a very interesting deck. I really enjoy it. Now, I'm looking at these cards as I shuffle, and I notice that a few of them don't seem to be going in the right direction. So if we get an upside down card, I'll just return it to its correct direction. Unfortunately, I didn't go through these first. It's been busy for me, what can I say? But these also are Chinese propaganda posters turned into a tarot deck. And for the United States, we don't get a full tarot deck. Russia only has the higher arcana. China gets the full deck. And America only gets the lower arcana. Because that's all I have in my collection to represent these countries. Now this deck is called the Union deck. And I really like this deck very much because although it's only playing cards, it seems that they used ecological methods for making and manufacturing these cards. And that always is a very, very important thing in life. So we have America, Russia, and China, and we want to know about the new hypersonic glider technology and what is going to happen to us all. After all, we're the ones who will be the victims should these bombs go off. It's a lot of decks and a lot of cards, and I don't want to lay out 3 of each because that would be too many cards. So I think what we'll do today is we'll do 1 Russian card at the top. Judgment. Oh, look at it with the axe and with the noose. And so this card represents executions. Very dire mass executions. That was the old Soviet way of doing things, if you recall. And that's what these bombs represent. Executions of humanity. The Chinese card is the King of Coins. China's only interested not so much in world domination, as much as owning the world and having all the world's money and resources. So let's put these 2 side by side and put America in the middle. The 6 of Hearts. Very interesting. So what we see here is that China, on the one hand, is investing a lot of its economy in this type of technology. China is not a first world country, it's a second world country. It has a huge overburdened population base. It doesn't have a lot of scarce world resources. And for China to now invest in this high technology weapons race means that people at the bottom will suffer with less resources. It does affect their economy to put billions out just to derive a missile system. Russia, on the other hand, is looking for a way to literally eradicate large segments of the human population in order to put itself on top of the pyramid as the king of the world. China already considers itself the king of the world. Maybe that's ethnocentrism, but they're more interested in having the wealth of the world than actually owning the place or running it. They are not interested in having a throne. They're interested in the gold that makes the throne. They want the money. And America here, with the Six of Hearts, the Six of Cups represents, or hearts, represents a marriage. It represents a union of many interests. In a marriage ceremony, you have both families and you have the aisle going down the middle of the church, just like the card shows. Here's the aisle and here are the two families. And so in the Six of Hearts, what we have is a large grouping of people, like in the United Nations. And cups tend to hold on to life. It tends to actually want to preserve life. So America, believe it or not, as dark and deceptive and negative as America has been in its past, certainly treating black slaves and American Indians poorly and other third world regions, in this particular arms race, America is seeking, believe it or not, United Nations international approval to protect life, to protect liberty, and to protect human interests. China just wants to own the world's money and resources, and Russia just wants to pass judgment on the world and reign supreme over the few living bodies that are left. These are three very diametrically opposed viewpoints. And each one is sinister in its own right. And each one is benefic in its own right. How would judgment be benefic? Well, we all will die. And what Russia is proposing is that a purified stratum of humanity remain, such that it would be in coordination with their ideology. So they're looking for a purification of humanity. And what is the positive side of the King of Coins? China feels that if it was in charge of the world, everybody would have a job. Maybe no one's rich, but everybody's working, and everybody's working together to make the world rich. And the Six of Cups, of course, is benefic because it speaks of the heartfelt nature of preserving life. But this Six of Cups can be poison in the cups. It can be the use of the United Nations with big, fantastic speeches, and yet America could be the first one to bomb and destroy all the nations of Earth and put them into submission. A lot of big questions here. Let's find out the truth and veracity of each of these and give each card one new card to define what it is they're trying to say. In China's case, we have the Chariot. And the Chariot, in this instance, really represents the basis of communist revolution. Here come the Chinese, and they're taking over the islands, and they're building you a dock, and they'll take over your economy, and nothing can stop them. Here they come forward charging. And they want to own the world. And there's just no question about it. And then we look at Russia and its judgment, and we see the card of strength. So Russia's judgment is almost like a test of wills. It's almost like a jousting tournament. It's almost like an Olympic competition. For them, it is like the survival of the fittest. Only the strongest, bravest, and best should survive and lead the world. And in this case, from Russia's view, it is Russia. But what about America and preserving life? We see America has the King of Spades. Spades are swords. Typically, the King of Spades in tarot is seen as a young man because people don't live too long when they play with swords. America is looking at this whole dynamic differently now that I see the cards fully laid out. Whereas China is dealing with some kind of ethnic, ideological progression of resource domination, and Russia is dealing with some kind of Darwinian survival of the strongest, America is using its talk and chatter about peace and international cooperation to make arms deals. America is only thinking of this as the newest and latest product that they can sell, and they can sell defense mechanisms for it, and they can sell bomb shelters, and this is just another marketing ploy for America. Well, now that we see all three countries and where they're coming from, what is the conclusion? Well, the conclusion from Russia is the sun. The conclusion from China is the Knight of Swords. And the conclusion from America is the Ten of Coins. America's conclusion is that it will become extraordinarily wealthy from this process. China's conclusion is that they will invade. They will use this weapon to take over the world, that they are interested in coming forth and owning all the world's resources and all the world's gold and all the world's money. But Russia has the sun. So even though Russia is working from a place of judgment and strength, almost a Darwinian ideology, almost a Romanesque view of survival of the fittest and the greatest amongst them, ultimately Russia will lead some kind of enlightenment through this process and will teach the world something great and honorable. But it doesn't mean it won't be without enormous casualties and destruction. My opinion overall, I think it's very sad that the three greatest countries in the world are only concerned with how they look, how they will profit, and how they will propagate their ideologies. I think it's very sad that not one of the cards here speak of peace, cooperation, and understanding. And I think that we are in a more fallen time than we realize looking at these cards, because there is no real sense of involvement, no real sense of concern or compassion, no real dedication to life. What I see here as the only beneficial card in the entire layout is the sun card for Russia. But this sun card could mean that they want the sunlight only to shine on them. And it could also mean that besides these hypersonic missiles, I know Russia had put out large mirrors in outer space and were trying to channel sunlight into the higher latitude regions of Siberia and Russia in order to provide more sunshine in winter and to provide more sunshine for their crops. Perhaps a sun-magnified laser beam as a weapon will make the hypersonic missile system defunct. After all, isn't that what we've seen over the many years? A new missile system comes in, a new technology comes in, makes it defunct, then a new technology comes in, makes it defunct, and we keep going and going and going like that. So the sun card, although it is generally a good card, in this context, it is definitely a Soviet sun. It is not a sun for all of us to be in its light. And I really feel that somehow the most important part about life has been missed desperately by arms traders, by propagandists, by militarists, and by national interests. Here we're hiring these politicians to keep the peace, and they're not doing their jobs. Again.